I was standing over my father's coffin when I got the message. Sorry, we've decided to go in a different direction. Don't return to the office. My name is Reina Torres, and I gave 5 years of my life to that company. But my boss didn't just fire me, he started a war he couldn't win. The funeral home was quiet except for soft organ, music, and muffled crying. My mother sat in the front row, broken. My younger sister held her hand. I stood beside them in a black dress I'd bought 2 days ago, numb from grief and exhaustion. My father had been my anchor. A postal worker who'd raised 3 kids on modest income and endless love. He'd taught me to work hard, treat people fairly, and never let anyone diminish my worth. 3 days ago, he collapsed from a heart attack. I dropped everything to be with my family. Sent one email to my boss, Damian Wells. Family emergency. Father passed. Need 3 days bereavement. He responded, so sorry for your loss. Take the time you need. Now, standing at the funeral, my phone buzzed. I glanced down, probably another condolence text. Instead, it was from Damian. A termination notice. Effective immediately. I stared at the screen, certain I'd misread. But the words remained. We've decided to go in a different direction. I didn't respond immediately. Couldn't process it. After the service, after hugging distant relatives and accepting casseroles from neighbors, I finally called Damian. This has to be a mistake, I said, voice hoarse from crying. It's not. I'm sorry, Reina, but your recent performance and emotional state have become concerning. The board felt it was best to part ways. You fired me at my father's funeral? I sent it before the service. I didn't know the exact timing. You knew I was burying him today. Silence. Then, look, your grief has been affecting the team. People are uncomfortable. You've been distracted. It reflects poorly on leadership potential. Leadership potential. I'd been senior strategy lead for 2 years. Had brought in millions in new business. Mentored junior staff. Worked weekends and holidays. This is illegal. Wrongful termination. We have documentation of performance issues. You'll receive severance. But challenging this would be unwise. The threat was clear. Fight, and they destroy me. I hung up, hands shaking. My father was being lowered into the ground, and I just lost the career I'd sacrificed everything for. I'd started at Wells and Harper 5 years ago as a mid-level strategist. The boutique PR firm was prestigious, competitive, and exhausting. I'd thrived anyway, rose quickly, became indispensable. Damian Wells had been impressive initially, charismatic, connected, the kind of boss who took credit for team wins but knew how to spin it as leadership. I'd covered for his mistakes more times than I could count. When he'd bungled the Meridian tech pitch by showing up unprepared, I'd salvaged it with a last-minute strategy pivot. He'd thanked me privately, then told the board it was his vision. When he'd forgotten about a major client meeting, I'd rescheduled it as a strategic timing adjustment and prepared materials overnight. He'd praised my support. I told myself it didn't matter. That being good at my job was enough. That loyalty would be rewarded. 3 months ago, he'd promised me a promotion to VP. Said I'd earned it. That the announcement would come after the quarterly review. Then my father got sick. I'd taken 2 days to drive him to specialist appointments. Worked from the hospital waiting room. Damian had seemed understanding. Now I understood. He decided I was a liability. Someone whose personal life might overshadow his ambitions. I contacted HR the next day. Asked for an explanation. Was told to submit a formal appeal, which I did. It went nowhere. The HR director, someone who'd once praised my work, sent a curt response. Performance documentation supports leadership's decision. No grounds for appeal. Performance documentation? I'd exceeded every metric. Had nothing but positive reviews. Then I heard through a former colleague, Damian had told the board I'd been emotionally blackmailing the team with my father's illness. That I'd been leveraging personal tragedy for sympathy. The lies were so absurd I couldn't process them. I'd barely mentioned my father at work. Had kept my grief private. Had worked through everything until the very end. But Damian had built a narrative. Painted me as unstable. Someone who couldn't handle pressure. Someone whose personal problems made her a liability. I wanted to fight. Wanted to expose him. But I was drowning in grief and unemployment. My savings were minimal. My mother needed help with funeral expenses. My sister was still in college. Fighting meant lawyers I couldn't afford and a battle that could take years. So I signed the severance agreement. Took the money. Walked away. But I didn't forget. I never forgot. Job hunting was a nightmare. I applied to 20 positions in the first month. Got 3 interviews. No offers. One recruiter was honest. Your name came up with red flags. Former employer indicated concerns about reliability and emotional stability. Damien was blacklisting me, destroying my reputation with whisper campaigns and carefully worded references. Nothing actionable. Just enough to make me unhireable. Another firm told me they'd heard I'd leaked confidential client information. A complete fabrication. But once that kind of rumor circulated, truth didn't matter. I spent my severance on rent and groceries, helped my mother sort through my father's things, attended grief counseling, applied for more jobs. 6 weeks after the funeral, I had $300 in my account and no prospects. I'd gone from senior strategy lead at a prestigious firm to unemployed and broke. I sat in my apartment one night, exhausted and hopeless, looked at my father's watch, the one my mother had given me after the funeral. He'd worn it every day for 30 years. You taught me to fight, I whispered to it. So I'm going to fight. I couldn't get hired, but I could work for myself. An unexpected message came from Pilar Santos, a former mentor who'd moved to another agency. Reina, I heard what happened. Are you okay? I also heard something disturbing, that they made you the scapegoat for the failed Walden pitch. I'd forgotten about Walden Industries. 3 months ago, Wells and Harper had pitched them on a major rebranding campaign. Damien had led it. I'd built the entire strategy. Walden had passed. Chose another firm. It happens sometimes. Why would I be the scapegoat? I asked Pilar. Damien told people you'd misread the client's needs. That the strategy was flawed. That's why they're letting you go. Another lie. The strategy had been solid. Walden had passed because Damien's presentation was unprofessional. He'd shown up late, been dismissive of their concerns, and generally embodied everything wrong with PR egos. But he blamed me, added it to the narrative of my supposed incompetence. This is what he does, Pilar said. I've seen him destroy people before. I should have warned you. What do I do? Rebuild. On your own terms. You're brilliant, Reina. He knows that. That's why he's scared of you. That conversation changed something. I wasn't just a victim. I was a threat Damien had tried to neutralize, which meant I had power he feared. I started freelancing, created a simple website, reached out to small businesses that couldn't afford big agencies, offered strategy consulting at rates I could actually justify. The first client was a local bakery expanding to a second location. Basic stuff, but I treated it like $1 million account. Built them a complete brand strategy. They loved it. The second client was a nonprofit struggling with donor engagement. I developed a communications plan that increased their donations by 40% in 2 months. Word spread slowly. Referrals came in. Nothing glamorous. Nothing that paid what Wells and Harper had. But it was mine. Built on my work. Not Damien's lies. 3 months after being fired, I had 8 clients and enough income to cover expenses. I'd survived the worst. Now I needed to rebuild my reputation. One evening, frustrated by another rejection email, I wrote a LinkedIn post. Didn't name Damien. Just shared my story, losing my father and my job simultaneously. The silence from an industry that claimed to value people. The loneliness of grief compounded by professional devastation. I posted it at midnight, expecting nothing. Went to sleep. By morning, it had 5,000 shares. By afternoon, 20,000. Comments flooded in, people sharing similar stories, offering support, expressing outrage. The post went viral. National news outlets covered it. Employment lawyers referenced it. HR professionals debated it in professional forums. My story had struck a nerve. This happens too often in corporate America, one comment read. Firing vulnerable employees because they're inconvenient. Another, I was let go 3 days after my mother died. Nobody talks about how companies treat grief. Executives started reaching out. Some offered jobs. Others wanted me to consult. Several asked me to speak at events about workplace culture and leadership. A woman named Victoria Cross, who ran a leadership organization, invited me to join a panel, Women Breaking Corporate Barriers. The event was prestigious. Major sponsors, industry leaders. I accepted, then saw the sponsor list. Wells and Harper was one of them. I contacted Victoria. Will this be a problem? Why would it be? They fired me. My former boss will likely be there. Even better. You're speaking from lived experience. That's powerful. Unless you're uncomfortable. No, I said. I'll do it. I wanted Damien to see what he hadn't destroyed. To watch me rise from the ashes of what he tried to burn. The panel was scheduled for a Thursday evening at a downtown hotel. 200 attendees. I prepared carefully. Didn't rehearse attacks on Damien. Just focused on my truth. The day before the event, Victoria called. We have a situation. Someone from Wells and Harper requested you be removed from the panel. They claim conflict of interest. Was it Damien Wells? The request came from their PR director. But yes, likely him. What did you say? I told them no. You were invited based on merit. Their discomfort isn't grounds for removal. But heads up, he might attend. Good, I thought. Let him watch. The panel included 4 women, a tech CEO, a venture capital partner, a nonprofit director, and me. We discussed barriers women face in leadership, corporate bias, the cost of showing vulnerability. When asked about my biggest challenge, I spoke honestly. I was fired while burying my father. Not for performance, but because grief made me inconvenient, because showing humanity was seen as weakness. The room went silent. Then someone started clapping. Others joined. A standing ovation. I saw Damien in the back row. His face was unreadable, but I knew he'd heard every word. After the panel, people swarmed me. Business cards, job offers, speaking invitations. One man waited patiently until the crowd dispersed. Miss Torres, I'm Nathan Archer from Archer & Blaine. Could we talk briefly? Archer & Blaine was huge. One of the top firms in the country. A direct competitor to Wells and Harper. Of course. Your panel was impressive. More than that, your story and your strategic insights suggest someone we'd want on our team. Would you be interested in discussing opportunities? What kind of opportunities? Building a new division focused on authentic brand storytelling. Real narratives, not corporate spin. You'd have full autonomy. Why me? Because you've lived what we're trying to sell. Authentic leadership, real resilience, and because your viral post generated more positive engagement than most agencies see in a year. You understand connection. We exchanged information. He promised to follow up. I left that event feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. Nathan called 3 days later. We'd like to bring you in for a formal meeting. We're serious about this role. The interview was unlike anything I'd experienced. No tricks, no tests, just honest conversation about vision, values, and building something meaningful. They offered me director of authentic strategy. My own team, 6-figure salary, full benefits, creative control. Why are you investing this much in someone who was recently fired? I asked. Because we did our research, Nathan said. Spoke with clients you've worked with, former colleagues. They all said the same thing, you're exceptional. And the circumstances of your termination tell us more about your former employer than about you. I accepted, gave notice to my freelance clients or transitioned them. Started at Archer & Blaine 4 weeks later. Within 30 days, I'd hired a small team. We landed 3 mid-tier clients developing rebranding campaigns. 2 of them had recently left Wells and Harper. I didn't poach them, didn't even contact them. They came to us after hearing about my new role. After seeing my work, after losing faith in Damien's leadership, word traveled fast. Within 2 months, 5 more clients shifted from Wells and Harper to Archer & Blaine. Not all to my division. But the pattern was clear. Damien was losing accounts. I heard through industry contacts that he was furious. Blamed me personally. Told people I was unethically targeting his clients. Then I received a cease and desist letter. Alleged I was violating a non-compete agreement and engaging in unfair business practices. Demanded I stop contacting Wells and Harper clients. I forwarded it to Archer & Blaine's legal team. They read it and laughed. You didn't sign a non-compete. Your severance agreement specifically waived that. And you haven't contacted anyone, they came to you. This is harassment. Our lawyer sent a response. Your accusations are baseless. Ms. Torres has engaged in no wrongful conduct. Further harassment will result in legal action. Damien backed off, but the damage to his reputation was spreading. People in the industry talked, whispered that he was losing control, that his star employee, the one he'd fired, was now his biggest competitor. 6 months after being fired, I was thriving. My division had grown to 12 employees. We'd landed 8 significant clients. Revenue projections exceeded expectations. More importantly, I'd rebuilt my reputation. Industry publications interviewed me about authentic branding. Speaking invitations continued. My LinkedIn following had grown to 50,000. Then a journalist contacted me. I'm writing a piece on toxic workplace culture in PR firms. Multiple former Wells and Harper employees have reached out with stories about Damien Wells. Your name came up. Would you be willing to speak? Off the record or on? Your choice. I thought carefully. Off the record, I'll share my experience. On the record, I'll decline to comment. Let the story speak for itself. The article ran 3 weeks later. The cost of corporate cruelty. Former employees speak out against PR firm leadership. 7 people were quoted. They described a pattern: public humiliation, credit theft, scapegoating, and retaliation against anyone who challenged Damien. My firing was mentioned as an example, but without direct quotes from me. The story went viral. Trade publications picked it up. LinkedIn exploded with commentary. Former clients started questioning their relationships with Wells and Harper. I said nothing publicly. Let the truth work on its own. Archer and Blaine capitalized on the moment. We launched a campaign highlighting our values: transparency, respect, authentic leadership. I became the public face of it, not because I was seeking attention, but because my story embodied what we were selling. Media coverage was overwhelmingly positive. Archer and Blaine leads industry shift toward ethical culture. How one firm is redefining PR leadership. I did interviews carefully. Never attacked Damien directly. Just spoke honestly about my experience and what I'd learned about the kind of workplace I wanted to build. My team grew to 18. Revenue doubled. We were becoming the go-to firm for clients who valued integrity over spin. Then came the conference invitation. GlobalCom Summit, the industry's biggest annual event. Thousands of attendees. Major keynotes. I was invited to speak on a panel about leadership innovation. When I received the full schedule, I saw Damien's name. He was leading a panel on crisis management. We'd be there simultaneously, in the same building, facing the industry together, one rising, one falling. The conference was in Chicago. I flew out 2 days early to prepare. The night before my panel, I reviewed notes in my hotel room when someone knocked. I opened the door to find Damien standing there. He looked older, tired. The confident swagger I remembered had faded. "Can we talk?" he asked. "How did you know my room number? I'm still connected here. Please. 5 minutes." Against my better judgment, I stepped into the hallway, leaving the door open. "I'm sorry," he said. "For all of it. Firing you was wrong. The timing was inexcusable. The lies I spread, I was protecting myself. I panicked. Why are you telling me this now? Because I've lost everything you're gaining. Clients are leaving. My team doesn't respect me. The board is questioning my leadership. I see you succeeding and I realize I created my own destruction by destroying you. You didn't destroy me. You tried. That's different. I know. That's why I'm here. To apologize. To ask if there's any way we can. I don't know. Move past this." I looked at him, the man who'd fired me while I was burying my father, who'd slandered me across the industry, who'd cost me months of income and security. "I appreciate the apology, but we're not moving past anything. You made choices. They had consequences. That's not my responsibility to fix." I went back into my room and closed the door. My keynote was scheduled for Friday morning. The room was packed, over 800 people. I spoke about building authentic leadership through adversity, about how crisis reveals character, about the power of rising with dignity. "A year ago, I was fired while grieving my father," I said. I could have responded with bitterness. Instead, I chose to build something better. Not out of revenge, but out of belief that there was a better way. The standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. Damien's panel was that afternoon. Fewer than 100 attended. I didn't go. Didn't need to. The empty seats said everything. That evening, 3 more clients contacted my team about transitioning from Wells and Harper. Word was spreading. Damien's firm was in crisis. Not because of market conditions or bad luck. Because of leadership failure. 2 weeks after the conference, I received a call from an executive recruiter. Wells and Harper's board is conducting a leadership review. They're looking at Damien's conduct. Several former employees have filed HR complaints. Would you be willing to provide testimony? About what specifically? The circumstances of your termination. The retaliation. The false narrative spread about you. I thought about it. About my father. About the months of struggle. About the lies that had nearly destroyed me. Yes, I'll testify. The investigation was thorough. HR interviewed dozens of current and former employees. Reviewed documents. Examined patterns of behavior going back years. The report concluded what many had known. Damien had created a toxic environment through systematic bullying, credit theft, and retaliation. My termination was cited as a particularly egregious example, firing someone during bereavement for manufactured performance issues. The board asked for his resignation. He initially refused. They offered severance on condition he leave quietly. He took it. Wells and Harper issued a statement. Leadership changes are being implemented to ensure a healthy, respectful workplace culture. No apology to me. No acknowledgement of harm done. Just corporate speak about moving forward. A publisher contacted me about writing a book. Your story resonates. We think there's a market for a book about resilience, workplace ethics, and authentic leadership. They suggested the title, Fired While Grieving. I declined. That focuses on what was done to me. I want to focus on what I built afterward. We settled on Built from the Ashes, reclaiming your worth after corporate betrayal. Writing the book was therapeutic. I told my full story, the grief, the firing, the struggle, the rebuilding. But I focused on lessons, not vengeance. On hope, not bitterness. The book took 6 months to write. During that time, my division continued thriving. We expanded to 25 employees. Opened a second office. Became one of Archer and Blaine's fastest-growing departments. At the book launch, I wore my father's watch. Looked at it during the speech and felt his presence. My father taught me that worth isn't given by employers or validated by titles. It's inherent. You carry it with you. And when someone tries to take it, you remind them they never had the power to. The book became a business bestseller. Speaking requests flooded in. I'd become a voice in conversations about workplace culture, ethical leadership, and corporate accountability. One morning, 18 months after being fired, I received a LinkedIn message from someone I didn't recognize. I worked at Wells and Harper. I was there when you were terminated. I want you to know, many of us knew it was wrong. We should have said something. I'm sorry we didn't. Similar messages arrived throughout the day. Former colleagues expressing regret, shame, relief that someone had finally challenged the system that had silenced them. One message stood out. From Ivy Park, a junior strategist who'd been on my team. You mentored me, taught me to be better. Then you disappeared, and nobody explained why. When I found out what really happened, I quit. Thank you for showing me what real leadership looks like. I responded to each message with grace. No anger. Just acknowledgement that systems like Damien's only work when good people stay silent. That speaking up, even later, mattered. 2 years after my father's funeral, I stood in my corner office at Archer and Blaine. My division had grown to 40 people. We'd become the firm's most profitable department. Industry awards decorated the walls. My phone rang. Nathan Archer. Raina, do you have a minute? I want to discuss something. We met in his office. You've exceeded every expectation. Built something remarkable. The board wants to recognize that. We're creating a new C-suite role, Chief Strategy Officer. We'd like to offer it to you. CSO. Executive Leadership. The promotion Damien had promised and never delivered. But this time, earned through my work. Offered by people who valued what I built. I accept. That evening, I called my mother. Told her about the promotion. She cried. Your father would be so proud. I wish he could see this. I think he can, I said, touching his watch. I think he's been watching the whole time. The announcement went public the next week. LinkedIn congratulations poured in. Industry publications covered it. I'd gone from fired to CSO in 2 years. From unemployed to executive leadership. The contrast to Damien's trajectory was stark. He'd left the industry entirely. Last I heard, he was consulting for small businesses. The empire he'd built on stolen credit and crushed careers had crumbled. My new role came with responsibilities I took seriously. I implemented policies I wish had existed when I worked for Damien. Transparent performance reviews, anonymous reporting for workplace concerns, mandatory bereavement leave without penalty. We're not just saying we value people, I told the executive team. We're building systems that prove it. Some thought I was overcorrecting, being too idealistic. But results spoke louder than skepticism. Employee retention improved. Talent acquisition became easier. Clients specifically requested our firm because of our culture. I also created a mentorship program for young professionals. Taught them what I'd learned. Document your work, know your worth, never accept treatment that diminishes your humanity. One mentee asked, "How did you not become bitter?" After everything that happened, I did become bitter. For a while. But bitterness is heavy. It slows you down. I chose to set it down and run faster without it. 3 years after my father died, my book hit its second printing. I'd done over 100 speaking engagements, built a division of 60 employees, helped change conversations about workplace culture across the industry. One afternoon, I received an unexpected email from Damien. Subject line, "Congratulations. Raina, I've been following your success from a distance. You've built something remarkable. I wanted to say that I respect what you've accomplished, and that I'm genuinely sorry for my role in trying to prevent it. I was wrong. About everything. I hope you're proud of what you've built. Damien." I stared at the email for a long time. Tried to find anger. Found only indifference. I didn't respond. He didn't deserve closure from me. His apology was about easing his conscience, not about repairing harm. I deleted the email and returned to work. The anniversary of my father's death came each year with the same weight. I'd visit his grave, tell him about my year, thank him for the lessons that sustained me. "You taught me to fight with dignity," I said to his headstone. "To rise without stooping. To win without cruelty. I hope I made you proud." The wind rustled through trees. I chose to believe it was his answer. That evening, I hosted a dinner for my team. We'd become more than colleagues, a genuine community. People who valued each other beyond productivity. "I want to thank you," I told them, "for building something that prioritizes people alongside profit, for proving that you don't have to be cruel to succeed, for showing me that the best revenge isn't destruction, it's creation." They raised their glasses. We toasted to the future we were building together. 5 years after being fired, I received an invitation to speak at my graduate business school. They were honoring me with their Distinguished Alumni Award. The ceremony was formal. Hundreds attended. The dean spoke about my remarkable journey from adversity to executive leadership. In my acceptance speech, I shared my story fully. 5 years ago, I was fired while burying my father. For months, I questioned my worth. Wondered if the lies people told about me were true. Nearly gave up entirely. I paused, looking at the audience of students about to enter the workforce. But I learned something crucial. Your worth isn't determined by who validates you. It's inherent. You carry it with you. And when someone tries to take it, when they fire you unjustly, spread lies, or diminish your humanity, remember, they're revealing their character, not defining yours. "You can break my heart," I concluded, "but never again will you break my worth." The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. Afterward, students surrounded me, asking advice, sharing fears, seeking hope that dignity and success weren't mutually exclusive. I stayed until the last question was answered, because someone had fought for me once. Now it was my turn to fight for others.